U.S. denies Amnesty conclusion on Gaza genocide. So this is as expected. The U.S. on Thursday rejected a 296-page report from Amnesty International that concluded Israel is conducting genocide in Gaza. State Department spokesman Vedant Patel said, quote, "We disagree with the conclusions of such a report. We have said previously and continue to find that the allegations of genocide are unfounded," end quote. So U.S. officials have repeatedly denied that Israel's committing genocide. And of course, they're not going to admit that they are aiding and abetting and funding a genocide because they're implicated in this. And Amnesty is calling for the U.S. and other countries that supply weapons to Israel to cut off the weapon shipments, to stop being complicit in genocide. And the U.S. is by far the biggest supplier of weapons to Israel. There was a report from SIPRI, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, from earlier this year that found Israel imports 69% of its weapons from the U.S. and 30% from Germany. So the U.S. and Germany are the two heavy hitters, but the U.S. is by far the biggest weapon supplier. And this has been the pattern of the Biden administration over the past year, is to deny what's happening in Gaza, deny the atrocities that are happening so they can ensure that the weapons continue to flow. As we've covered a lot, they're in violation of foreign assistance laws that prohibit military aid to countries that use American weapons to violate international law. And they also prohibit military aid to countries that purposely block humanitarian aid. It's very clear Israel is doing both of those things. And then the third thing that a lot of people don't talk about is there are foreign assistance laws that prohibit military aid to a country with nuclear weapons that does not sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The U.S. gets around that by not acknowledging that Israel's nuclear weapons exist. But when it comes to the war crimes and the blocking of aid, the State Department put out a report earlier this year claiming that it was likely Israel is violating international law, but we don't have the evidence. So this Amnesty report, they looked at 15 airstrikes that they examined and investigated between October 7th, 2023 and April 20th, 2024. And in those strikes, they found no evidence that there were any military targets, and said that 334 civilians, including 141 children, were killed. So Patel was asked about this in the briefing, kind of in the context of, so the U.S., what evidence can Amnesty look at that the U.S. can't look at, essentially? Can't you access the same evidence that they can? And Patel, what did he do? He deferred to the Israeli military. He said, quote, "I will defer to the IDF to speak to its specific military operations," end quote. And then the reporter said, "So do you just take, is all your investigation just what the IDF says to you?" And Patel said, no, that's not the case. But there was a report recently from the Washington Post that said there's about 500 incidents of Israel unnecessarily killing civilians that the State Department is supposed to investigate under this new policy that they put in place before October 7th. And that report said none of those reports have been, they're supposed to investigate them and then take action. Well, they dismiss any of them, and the only evidence that they're basically using is what the Israeli military, they're just asking the Israeli military about all these incidents. So it is right that, they're just letting the Israeli military tell them what happened. So Israel, of course, denied that they were committing genocide, claiming that it was a fabricated report that's entirely false and based on lies, and they called Amnesty a deplorable and fanatical organization. In Gaza, Palestinians said that the conclusion from Amnesty came too late. So this is a Gaza resident named Abu Anas Mustafa who spoke to Reuters while attending a funeral in Khan Yunis and said, quote, "It is the 430th day of the war today, and Israel has been carrying out massacres and a genocide from the first 10 days of the war," end quote.